Thank you, Father. My uncle, Father Olson, is a horrible tease. He's teased me my whole life, so I'm sure he gave Father Jerry a little razzing when he was serving under him. What do you do when you've been given much? Jesus says in Luke 12:48, verse 48, "To him whom much has been given, much will be required." So when I first came, a little late, with a couple kids on my lap, to the first kickoff meeting where Pastor Bob introduced the capital campaign, I was sitting in the back there, and at the beginning of the meeting, I had a number in my head. I figured we could probably donate about $10,000. And that would be a bit of a sacrifice for us. It would. But I was confident we could do it. And as I listened to Pastor Bob present the concepts of making a change in your lifestyle and priorities, and was there a list of 3? Is there a third thing? It's lifestyle, priorities. Is there something else? Okay, those 2. And as I considered that everything we have is God's and that we are stewards, I recalled all the good things God has done for us. And then I heard the stories he shared about other couples in other churches who made big changes in their lifestyle or their priorities in order to give generously. And I really felt my own desire to give generously grow and grow. And I had to laugh to myself because by the time I got up and walked out of that meeting, the number in my head had multiplied many times.
Wait for it. So we committed to praying and thinking about it. We read The Treasure Principle. Fantastic book. If you haven't read it, please do. We were invited to be on the cabinet. And during the first cabinet meeting, we were both inspired with an amount for our commitment. We talked about it at home that evening. We enthusiastically shared with each other what we believed God was calling us to do. We each had the exact same number on our heart. One of the things that Bob said rang very true for us, and that is that we have been prepared by God for this moment and for this challenge. We believe that God used 3 deep themes in our lives to prepare us for this moment. So we would like to share briefly how God has worked in our lives, not just recently, but for many years to bring us to this point.
So our first theme, as our friends may know, is personal finances. We're kind of personal finance nerds. We had worked on our own personal finances as poor graduate students for years, more or less pursuing a frugal lifestyle. But it was largely when, about 3 years ago, we encountered the programs and advice of Dave Ramsey that we finally got traction and our efforts took off. It really gave us jet fuel. We finally learned how to design and live on a written zero-sum budget each month, which we track together one night a week. We kind of make it a budget date night. Yeah, add a little wine and chocolate and it really does become fun. So we really started to figure it out. We now live on less than 80% of our income. We paid off all our debts. Over the period of a few years, we scrimped and saved up 6 months emergency fund, 6 months worth of living expenses as a cushion. And most importantly, we are completely united on our financial goals. In fact, this February, we both made the decision that our next big financial goal would be to pay down our home mortgage as quickly as we could. With a renewed dedication to frugal living, to saving, and to growing our income, we had paid down $30,000 by October of this year. We had estimated that it would take approximately 3 years to pay off the remainder. So this is a real passion of ours, and if this sounds fun to you, things like delayed gratification, shopping at thrift stores, budgeting, slashing food costs, being a black belt frugal zealot, come talk to us, because we love to share this message with people, and we'd love to talk with you about it too.
So the next theme that God used in our lives is actually community and building community. During the early part of our married life, we lived in Washington, D.C., in that area for about 8 years while we attended grad school and started having children. We settled in a little town called Hyattsville, which was outside the city of D.C. On the rail line, and we attended St. Jerome's Parish. We bought a home just a few blocks from the church. In very real, practical, and spiritual ways, we felt like this was our apprenticeship in community and family life. Families met weekly for Sunday evening prayer potlucks. The moms had daily walks, monthly book clubs. The dads of the parish formed a barn raiser group to help each other with home improvement projects, from gutting and rebuilding a house to building a shed or repairing a fence or doing yard work. We shared tools, talent, and fellowship. The parish met frequently for fellowship every Sunday. We used our parish hall there to serve the poor and for many, many memorable events. After leaving the D.C. area to move back to the Pacific Northwest, where Sarah grew up, we've now settled in a small town on a rail line just outside the city. We bought a home just a few blocks from the church. We left St. Jerome's with a strong desire to be part of a great Catholic community, and we found that community right here at St. Andrew's. We see our future here as we raise our 4 daughters and grow to a happy old age together. God placed in our hearts a deep, deep desire to be part of a community and to help build up that community. And little did we realize that God would call us to literally help build the community gathering place.
Our devotion to St. Joseph is our third theme. I prayed to St. Joseph for a husband, and when I met Nathan and we started dating on Valentine's Day, it turns out his birthday was a month later on March 19th, the Feast of St. Joseph. Thank you, St. Joseph. That was the first of many answered prayers. Nathan took St. Joseph as his patron saint when he was confirmed, shortly before our engagement. And we've often found ourselves in need of jobs or houses, or both at the same time sometimes. We've always turned to St. Joseph, maybe a little novena or just some urgent heartfelt prayers, and he's always come through for us. And he often leaves his signature, too. When we left Spokane, when we were finished with our studies at Gonzaga and moved over to the D.C. area, we left behind a house that we had imprudently bought when we were really young and foolish. And it became a rental house, and we can tell you from firsthand experience that being landlords cross-country isn't very fun. So we really prayed for St. Joseph to help us get this house sold, and it finally did. And of course, the name of the man who bought it was Joseph. And then when we left the D.C. area and moved back here, we left behind a house that we urgently needed to sell because we were cross-country landlords again. And so we prayed and prayed to St. Joseph to get this house sold. And it did sell on March 19th, his feast day. Thank you, St. Joseph. So this summer, we actually were traveling, and we had a layover in Montreal. And as I looked out my window, just outside the wing, I saw this huge, beautiful gray stone church with this big, beautiful dome. And I told my girls and Nathan, I think that's the shrine to St. Joseph that St. Andre Bessette helped build. And so when we later realized that Father Jerry was asking the intercession in particular of St. Joseph and St. Andre Bessette for this capital campaign, we realized again how God had used that moment to prepare us for the campaign, and that St. Joseph was leaving his signature for us again.
So these 3 deep themes in our lives suddenly intersected in this campaign. God gave us a deep desire to build community and be part of it. He gave us years of preparing our financial situation to enable us to be generous to this work. He confirmed it for us with the fingerprints of St. Joseph, who has been so much a part of our lives. God makes straight the crooked paths. What seems at times like mysterious twists and turns, we now believe that all of these were preparations for this moment. So back to where we started. As we came home from that first cabinet meeting, we both had the same number in our hearts to give to this campaign. It's the amount that we would have spent to pay off our home mortgage, which is $155,000. And we can't help but smile at God's sense of poetic symmetry here. We'll be directing these funds, rather than paying off a home for one family, we'll be directing these funds for a home for all of our families. We realize that we have received so much from God, everything we have. And Jesus said, "To whom much has been given, much will be required." And we have been given so much: our faith, our family, our health, our knowledge about personal finances, everything. He has been so generous to us, and now we want to be as generous as possible in return.
We see our girls growing up here. If any of them get married, we could see them having a wedding reception there. We look forward to, at the parish hall, we look forward to hopefully holding many marriage retreats there. We just see a bright and happy future and lots of possibilities there. And we just really want to be part of leaving a legacy here at this parish of rich community life. And this is really an act of faith for us. We don't have this money laying around right now. We're going to reach and stretch and save for it. So we ask your prayers, and we want to encourage you to just reach for these great possibilities. We were watching a video program that we were streaming through Formed, through the parish's Formed subscription. It was a Bible documentary by Stephen Ray in his Footsteps of Faith series. And he was talking about Abraham. And he made a comment that really hit me right in the heart. He was talking about how the patriarchs lived in tents. These were temporary dwellings. You move them around. But when they built altars to God, those altars were made of stone. They're permanent. Tents, dwellings, our homes are temporary. The altar to God is permanent. And that was, again, just another sign for me that this is the way that we're going to make a mark and really build up God's house, which opens up into eternity, that our own home, we can pay off the mortgage later after we do this, and but really putting God first and working on his home, that he's going to honor that. And we had a little idea for how we can, so we had been talking to our girls about paying off the home mortgage, and they were a little unenthusiastic about that. They're like, oh, does that mean we can't have any fun for 3 years? So we thought we would kind of involve them in the process and make it tangible for them. And we're going to do the same thing with the parish hall project now. So we're going to get 155 Lego blocks and build a little parish hall building in our living room. And each time, we save up another $1,000, we're going to let them take a little Lego block out of it so they can see the deconstructed parish hall as the real parish hall gets closer and closer to the goal. And when that goal does happen, Woosters, I really hope we can have some dance in there. Sounds like a lot of fun. So thank you all very much, and God bless.